Welcome. We're so glad that you're here this morning. My name is Cory, and I'm the lead pastor here at Redemption. For everybody else whose body just realized that it's spring this weekend, I'm with you, right? I'm with you right here. You feel that? I'm with you, okay? I was trimming boxwoods yesterday, and I got attacked, all right? And so I feel you. And we're here in spring. Hey, one thing real quick, I want to apologize about our coffee. Here at Redemption, we believe in good coffee. We ran out of good coffee this morning, and it was an emergency moment, SOS. And when we have an emergency SOS, we call, not Ghostbusters, we call Panera. Okay, we call Breadco. So we called Breadco, we got their coffee. If you think it's good, that's fine. And so anyway, we have that. And so I apologize for that. If you are with us today, I just want to extend a special welcome to you. Let's go ahead and give it up for our first-time guests. Okay, so today we have a parent panel, and what I'm going to do is invite our panelists up here. I got a couple more things to say, but come on up. We're going to go ahead and set the stage for this. We got to grab mics and get stools and whatnot, and so I'll let them do that behind me while I share a couple things here. But we're in this series, How to Be a Good Blank. And specifically, we look through a lot of different things. We're looking at the offices that we hold as believers, as followers of Jesus. Like, what do you hold? And the offices vary, right? We talked about leader, we talked about friend, we talked about neighbor, a lot of different things. But the reality is that all of you hold certain offices. And not everybody's going to hold the office of parent. So I want to address that real quick. You may not ever become a parent. And if that's the case, just understand that there's a lot of things, a lot of truths today that I think you're going to be able to apply to other areas of your life. If you're not going to be a parent, my hope is that you get to be an aunt or an uncle. You get to be a really good friend for another family who might have kids. Again, not everybody has children. And we talked last week about how to be a good man and how to be a good woman. And if you don't have children, that does not diminish your calling of being a man or a woman or a healthy adult. And so just understand that there's a lot here that can be taken for wisdom in other areas. Also, we chose this panel specifically because we believe that there's a lot of wisdom here. On Friday, what we did was we had several other families, younger families, meet. We had dinner, and we had probably a 2-3 hour conversation around parenting and kind of talked about some of these things. And people chimed in and kind of asked questions and tried to draw all the goodness, the cream to the top. So I'm just going to say a few more things. I don't want to talk a lot today because the real good stuff is behind me. It's not here. We are going to read Deuteronomy, though, together. So you can turn your eyes to the screen or pull out your phones. This is Deuteronomy 6, and this is this moment. This is the Shema. This is this moment where God is giving this calling to Deuteronomy, or to the Israelites in Deuteronomy, and it specifically connects to parenting, okay? It says, "Now this is the commandment, the statutes, and the rules that the Lord your God commands me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, you and your son and your son's sons." You see this generational teaching here. "By keeping all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you all the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of when you sit in your house, or talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of the house of your gates." So Moses is talking here, this idea of all the things that the Lord has commanded them up until this point. Teach them to your children. Talk about them everywhere you go. And here's the reality. These families behind me, they haven't done it perfectly. And today, as we get into it, one of the things that we want to hear from them is actually their mistakes. We want to hear, what are the biggest mistakes you've made as parents? And so that's going to kind of happen. We're going to have those conversations. When things went wrong, how did you handle those things. And so we're going to talk about that. They didn't do it perfectly. They'll tell you that themselves, but they did it really well. That's why they're up here, right? And so, you know, they didn't do it perfectly, but they did it really well. And so we want to be talking about that and hearing them. We believe at Redemption, we believe this, that we don't bet on good marriages. We build good marriages. And the same goes for your family and your parenting. You don't bet on becoming a good parent. You build it. You intentionally become a good parent because hope isn't a strategy, right? Well, one of the things we talk about with Stephen Covey in our culture of leadership and in our world of entrepreneurship and stuff is begin with the end in mind. What happens is we often do this with our business plans, and we create these awesome businesses, and we're so worried about them failing. And for some of us, we're more worried about our businesses failing and our jobs failing than we are about our families failing. And so what we want to do is be really intentional about that. We don't want to give more time and commitment to our companies and other things like that. We want to give the most time and commitment because the real ministry and the real work is in our homes. And the last thing I'll say is one of my favorite quotes is by Andy Stanley. He says, "Vision is a clear mental picture of what could be, fueled by the conviction that it should be." It's in his book, Visioneering. And for us as a church, we want a clear mental picture of what could be for healthy families and healthy parenting and Christ-centered parenting. And so today, we're going to be asking some questions, and we're going to go through that with this panel. So, yeah. Got a question? I don't know. Maybe. We got to scoot? We're gonna move this. Oh, it's for a live stream. Yes, thank you. We're totally okay with interruptions specifically because we want the live stream to look good, okay? So, and not for people who watch it, because like 10 people watch it each week, but because I believe this, I think that you're gonna wanna recall this. I think you're gonna, send this to some friends and say, hey, we had this really good panel. They said some deep things. So, okay. Let's start to my right here with James, and then we'll just go around, and I want you guys to introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself, how long you've been to the church, how many kids you have, because that's your prerequisite of being up here. So, we have the same answer. Yeah, same answer. That's right. That's right. Well, she can answer. You can answer. I don't care, but yeah.
Okay. So, James Diel, we've been attending Redemption. Megan and I. We have 4 children. Johanna, who is, and they're all sitting, all of that Johanna are sitting in the back today, so they'll keep us honest, hopefully. So Johanna, or Josie, is a sophomore in college, finishing her sophomore year at Wheaton in Chicago. And then Ivy is 16, almost 17 here, our firstborn son. And then Ella is next, she's 15, and Theo is 11. So we've been attending Redemption since the beginning, actually.
2019.
Yeah, 2019. So
yep.
We were part of the launch team, and that's part of our journey as a family, actually, has been leaving where we were and moving into a place of startup, a place of newness, a place where everything, we had to be creating things. And so our kids have been a part of that journey from the beginning, and that's been a part of our story there. But yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, and I start businesses, so.
That's good. Good. Meg, what do you want to say anything?
Same answers.
Same.
As this guy.
Ditto. This is like ordering at a restaurant. All have the same things.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
That's it. Yeah.
So I stay home with our kids. We homeschool. I help support his serial entrepreneurship. So.
That's good.
Good morning, Todd. Is this working? In my face,
there you
like
go.
that close?
Yeah.
That's uncomfy. Good morning, Todd and Diane Nixon. We've been at Redemption for 5 years, so we were right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't on the launch team, but we were January of 2020.
Yeah, first service you were there.
Yeah, first service,
Yeah.
6 services in COVID. So what a blessing it's been. Diane and I have 2 children. Morgan, who's 32, she lives in Dallas with her husband. They have their first baby, a little boy named Bennett. And then our other daughter is Abby, and her husband Brandon, she's 29. They live in northwest Arkansas, and they have a little girl, Emery, and a little boy, Brooks, who's new to this world. I want to emphasize something that Cory kind of already led into. It's humbling to sit here in front of all of you and claim to be a parenting expert.
We're not experts,
I will,
by the
yeah,
way.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I was going to speak for myself, but we all agreed the other night, we are not experts. In fact, I would say the first 40 years of our life, I was more focused and intentional about spreadsheets and our next home and our next car than I was leading my family. And through a medical event that Diane went through that almost took her life, Jesus used that to get our attention and to focus on the things that truly matter. And some of that will come through here today. Diane has aphasia, so if she comes in and says something, it will be profound. But it's usually just a few words here and there, but bear with us. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. What do you want to say, Diane?
Diane.
Yep.
Diane. Nixon.
That's it. Okay. So just so you know, we like I said, we had this conversation the other night. We're going to try to draw out some of the best parts of that conversation. The reason we did that is we're on a limited time here, and I wish we could extend our service today, 10, 20 minutes, because. And I said this morning, I wish we could have taken the conversation that we had, just recorded it, and long podcast formed it, because it was so good. But we're going to do our best to kind of pull out the best parts of this. So these questions, by the way, we didn't get to all the questions that I have for us, not even close. Meredith's going to be putting all these questions on social media so that you can read through these and kind of consider them for yourself and for your family. There's 19 different questions, but we're going to try to hit about 7 today. Okay? All right, here we go. Was there anything that was decidedly your North Star of parenting goals? So meaning like the one thing that you go after, okay? Your North Star of parenting goals, and has that North Star shifted over time? And you guys, any of you can jump in.
I'll answer that. I think for us, we wanted children who would find their own faith. We wanted children who would love Jesus. It's not something that you can make happen, right? So outside of that, really family unity, I think, was one of the ways that we wanted to use to get there. So decisions would be kind of made based on, is this something that would create family unity? Is this something, and then how that extrapolated out was, we wanted to parent for a relationship in the end, because we knew that the time of their being in our home, them being little, being super formative, was super short compared to the decades of being their adult parent. So I think outside of wanting them to love Jesus, it was parenting for long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Did you
That's
add to
super.
that?
Yeah.
Profile.
No, I wouldn't. That's exactly right.
That's great. Yeah. Anything else there?
Yeah, I would kind of alluded to it. I'd say early on there was no North Star. I would say, what do we call it? Moralism.
Yeah.
We kind of the from the scripture, the shiny cup. We appeared to have it all together. We played church, but mostly just driven for the things of this world. Then I would say when Diane had her medical event, and Jesus used that to point to him. Obviously, Jesus became the North Star, and that was huge for us because that had not been the case. And I would just say the aha in that for us was that these aren't our children. These are God's children, and we were stewards. And I don't know why, but that perspective really changed.
Say that louder
how
for
we
the people in the
parented.
back.
What?
Say that louder for the people in the back. That they're not your children. Who's
Yeah,
that?
they're not your children. They're God's children, and we don't always get that right. But that's a really great perspective, and for some reason that really spoke to us, and that intentionality really set in. It's a big job, and the hardest job that we've ever had, and the most worthwhile.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about panels is they'll kind of go left and right sometimes, and we're going to cover a question that's not even on this list here. That just came to my mind. The idea for like parents who think, I have good children, or my goal is to have good children, how is the goal of having good children not good enough? So one of the things we say at Redemption is if better is possible, then good is simply not good enough. I think for parenting, having good children is not good enough. Why is that not good enough in the faith? Like in Christian faith, why is that not good enough?
So from our perspective, it was very important for us early on for us to have good children. I mean, that was, unfortunately, our focus sometimes was distracted from their heart and more onto their actions, and more onto parenting for the right actions, for the right responses, for the right attitude at the right time. And we've been convicted about that over the years because that isn't the goal. That really shouldn't be the goal of our parenting. The goal of our parenting should be to shepherd their heart and to guide their heart. And I think that's not easy. It is a lot easier to make sure that they're obedient, that when you tell them to get up and do something, they get up and they do it right away without complaining and immediately. What was the phrase you used? Right away?
All the way, right away, with a happy heart.
All the way, right away with a happy heart. Like that sounds great, but that's not necessarily the goal of parenting. It's shepherding their heart. So, and that can be a really difficult tension sometimes for parents. I feel like I was going to go somewhere farther with that, but
That's okay.
Did I complete that thought?
Well, we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Go ahead.
My brother Cory here loves Andy Stanley, so I'm gonna talk Andy
Careful.
Stanley here. He has a book called "How Good Is Good Enough," and I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many folks I've
Yeah.
sent that out to.
Mm-hmm.
Good does not save us. Jesus saves us. So, I would just say, if I had a goal, the ultimate compliment I can pay somebody is that they love the Lord. And what does that look like? There's all kinds of things that go into that. But as James said, we don't make that happen. We just try to create an environment where that's possible. And God does the work from there. So we, at 41 and 43, I just want to say this and encourage you. If you've not started, or if you feel like you're behind, or you feel like you've failed, it is never too late. Trust me. God is big, and he can do huge things, and he got a hold of us later in life and transformed our lives and our family. So it's just never too late.
Yeah, that's right. There can be great wisdom outside of Scripture. And one of the proverbs, it's a Chinese proverb that I return to a lot in life. Some people say it's a Greek proverb. Either way, one of them own it. What's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Today, right now. And so for you, if you're at a place where you're like, I feel like I've missed it, maybe you did. Maybe you did miss like the past. You can't go back and change the past, but you can starting now change the future. And so my encouragement and challenge would be that you would do that for sure. Okay, and then let's go to question number 2. What is considered the finish line of faith in your house for your children? And the reason we ask this question is because good children, for some people, that is the finish line of faith in their house. The reason we ask this question is because if you come from a Catholic background, what it might be for you is baptism and Eucharist and what's the other? Was it confirmation? Thank you. It was escaping me. It might be confirmation, right? If you're from Baptist culture, or whatever, it might be like saying a prayer and whatever. But what is it? Like it's different for a lot of people. What's the finish line of faith in your family?
So in our family, as we've thought about this and as we've kind of been shepherding our kids, they've all made a profession of faith, which we're really grateful for. But just a profession of faith is not the end. There's a sanctification that all of us go through from a lifelong perspective. But beyond that, for us, in our hope and our kind of finish line, if we feel like we have done all that we can, and God is there and is real in their life. From a standpoint, that finish line is them meeting Jesus, them really meeting and seeing God and having a life-changing impact on their life. When you're raised in a Christian family, you know, most kids would say, well, I've heard this all my life. I knew about Jesus since the time I could remember, you know, remember anything. And so in that scenario, there's oftentimes, there needs to be that real, like when that child meets Jesus and knows him, and he changes their life and their heart. And so for us, that's the finish line, and that might come while they're in our home during the first 18 or 20 or however many years they're living with us, and it might come later. We pray that it comes soon, but that's the finish line that we see when we think about that.
Just that they own their own faith, that their faith is completely separate from our home and their upbringing. It's their own.
And speaking to that a little bit, like just define that, like put some flesh on those bones for the people. Like, what is that for you? What does it mean for them to own their own faith?
Yeah, that it's something that they choose to pursue, engage in. Then it isn't necessarily facilitated. I mean, it could be facilitated by us, but it's something that is their own, that matters to them, that they are motivated, and that they are living out their faith in an active, vibrant way.
Yeah.
Outside of anything that we
Are pushing them to
pushing or requiring or even, you know, encouraging outside of just the way we would with a peer.
Yeah.
You know.
You may have required this, so if you did, don't say that you did for the sake of the illustration. But I think it was like last summer, Josie came in with a car of your kids. So it was all four of them. You guys were out of town. You guys were out of the country, and your four kids came to church Sunday by themselves. And I was kind of shocked to see them in some ways. And I was like, oh no, they're the Diel kids. Of course they're going to be at church, you know. And if they're here, they're going to be here. And again, if you required them to go, don't say that you did. Yeah, don't say. But yeah, that's an image, right? Of like they were here, and to be honest with you, before Christ regenerated my heart, I would have just said that I went to church and lied to my parents. That was also before Live 360 on phones, so they couldn't, Or I would have asked a friend to take my phone to church, Anyway, get creative. What about you guys? Any thoughts there?
I'm still in James and Megan's answer. I've said this before, I'll embarrass them. If I could have it to do over, I would emulate a lot of what James and Megan have modeled. I've got to be around them in community group, et cetera, and it's been such a blessing and so refreshing as something that we figured out later. So yeah, own their own faith, I think that's spot on, but I'll go another step as our kids got older. We've been praying for their husbands since we became Christians when they were 10 and 12. And I cannot tell you how important that is, and talk about owning your own faith and then owning the responsibility of selecting someone that's going to lead you. Because when I walked those girls down that aisle, I recognized the weight and the transfer of what was happening. I was transferring their spiritual leadership from me to them. And so I can't tell you how amazing it is that day when you know that you're handing them off to a godly man that will lead. So I would start praying, if you have daughters or if you have a son, I'd be praying for him to be a godly man, that some father or mother's praying for their daughter.
That's good. Question 3, what's one way that you've led your family spiritually that's worked better than you've expected?
I don't remember that question.
It wasn't.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
We're doing pretty decent on time, so curveball. Yep.
You want me to hop in? Yeah. I can't think of any one thing. You got exposed to a lot of different things. I'll sum up at the end a couple of resources that were really helpful and beneficial. We were talking about this, that we all say it takes a village. No, we say it takes a church.
Amen.
There were so many different things. The devotionals. I will tell you the simplest thing that I couldn't believe the impact that it had. And I asked my kids the other day, I said, we're going to be on this panel. What were some of the things that we did that stood out to you? We had dinner together a lot. I know that sounds silly, but that was captured, talk time, no phones. Phones were off the table. And we just connect. How was your day? What was the best thing that happened? Just simple connection, but we did it a lot. And I'm shocked to this day that that impacted and that they would even recall that. And going to their sporting events, by the way. Yeah.
And same for you guys, right? The dinner thing? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about that.
Yeah, talk.
Family dinner, again, that was a family unity
Yeah.
thing, right? And it's gotten harder the older kids get, the more, evening commitments that they have. But we've always worked very hard at having as many family dinners as possible. Now I think we're down to I don't know, two or three maybe in a week. But
But you say that like it's no big, or like it's small, but there are families, I mean, like, no shame. There are families here who aren't having it once a week. So it's a big deal to even have 2 or 3. You have teenagers, you're fighting for that time. It's really
right,
big.
and it's not like we have a spiritual conversation every time we have dinner.
Sure.
I mean, rarely actually that happens.
Yeah.
We're usually just connecting, but quality. We talked about this the other night. Quality happens in the context of quantity, and that was maybe another North Star was just as much time as possible, because you can't make up for. You can't force the good stuff to happen in a short amount of time. And, family dinners are some of those times too.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that. The quantity of time, I think, is really important. That's something that I think has surprised us. Our kids all really value quality time together. It was a value of ours, but our kids have enjoyed that, and they've embraced that. And in the quantity of time together, so we've homeschooled most of our kids for a good portion. They've all gone to traditional school at different times, but and Theo's still at home actually, and Ivy's back at home. So like it just depends. But part of that has been the quantity of time together as a family. Then the amount of time we have to input into their lives and their hearts. But also just the opportunity to take time with your kids one-on-one, special time is something that I think has had a bigger impact than I even know or can understand, even at this point. Just taking time away, whether it's for a night, a date night with your daughters, or a hangout time with your sons, or whether it's a weekend trip. I think the quantity of time together is really impactful. And so prioritizing that, I've seen that. That's been unexpected, I guess. I hoped that it would have an impact, but it's been there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind piling on that. I don't ever get this right. Megan cleared it up for me, but I just say quantity equals quality. And that's hard, especially for us career-oriented men that have a lot of drive. And that was a big wake-up call for me. But I'm going to tell you the more, less time, less influence. Somebody's going to influence them, and the question is, who's that going to be? And the more time you're with them, the more likely you're going to stumble into some of those conversations that you need to be having with them. And that was a big aha for us.
Yeah, this is actually a good segue to the next question. But the one thing I was also going to say is it's been said a lot back in my days of student ministry that kids spell love T-I-M-E, right? That's what they're talking about. And so if you're not spending time with your kids the way that you would like to, fight for that because they feel that love that way. The next question that I want to get to is, how do you protect your kids without over-sheltering them? So you're talking about this idea that if you don't influence them, if you don't have that time with them, somebody else will. And the truth is that, their education, they're at school, 6 hours a day plus whatever, and then sports, and then as they grow older, they spend less and less time with you. And so how do you protect your kids without over-sheltering them? And is there such a thing even as that?
I loved your answer the other night.
So there's a tension for sure, because as parents, if we're trying to be responsible parents, if we're trying to be godly parents, we want to make sure that the influences on our kids are healthy influences, are the right things at the right time. And I think that's key. And so so there's a balance between, at the same time, we want them to experience opportunities to fail and to make mistakes while they're with us, while they're in our home, while we're together as a family. And so the other key piece, though, about this is time and the age and age appropriateness. Our culture is pushing so much at our kids so fast that it is a bit of our responsibility to introduce them to the things they need to know and understand, but introduce it at the right time. And you know the right time for your kids. And it might not be the right time that the culture says is the right time. So you might have to be a little bit protective. But at the same time, the goal should be to get them to a point where when they leave your home, they're prepared to make decisions. They've made bad choices. They've failed. They've had freedom to exercise wisdom or foolishness, and you've been there to kind of work through that with them. So it's really can be a really difficult tension. And sometimes your kids are like, why don't I have the freedom, right? I mean, I'm sure I could get an amen from the back. But at the same time, there's that we're trying to give you freedom, but we're also gauging how you're able to respond, and so yeah.
Yeah.
I just love the way you said the other night. It is our responsibility as Christian to protect our children, and the culture is against that right now. I mean, so they so don't want that message to get through. So I just appreciated your conviction around that. Yes, it is, but we've also got to give them some elbow room and some leg room to learn and stub their toes. So it's a tension.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, let's go to this. How do you disciple your kids when you're still figuring out your own faith? There's many people in there. There are many people in this room that would say, like, yeah, I mean, these things I'm struggling on. I don't feel like I have all the answers. I may even be like 80% on Christianity, maybe not 100%, but I know redemption is good for our family. I know some sort of religion is good for our family, and we've chosen Christianity, and we're looking into Jesus and whatever. How do I had a friend the other night, she called me crying. She goes, I was talking to my daughter, and she asked me what the difference is between Jesus and God, and I couldn't tell her. I don't know what to say. And so there's people like that, right, that weren't born in the church or raised up in the church. How do you disciple your kids if you're still trying to figure out your own faith? Have you guys experienced that?
I mean, my answer is pretty simple. I think just as in any other topic, you do what you know to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're helping your kids with homework, you don't know all the answers. I mean, the thing is, you're not going to be an expert
Especially the new math.
Yes, that's right.
you're not going to be an expert in anything, truly an expert. I mean, you may.
Right, yeah.
And that could be the thing that you're really killing at teaching your kids.
Yeah.
But chances are, you're winging it in a lot of things,
Yeah.
and faith is not different.
No. Right.
And then, the thing is, you are a little bit ahead of them.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, you're the person with the light. I mean, maybe only what you see is right here, but you're leading them. And I would just say, encourage you to do what you know to do.
Yeah.
And then seek community.
Yeah.
Because there are people, and that's what the church is, and that's what community group, and there are people that are farther ahead of you with their light,
Yeah, again, it takes a church to raise a child. Yeah.
I mean, kind of shared our story, went from 0 to 60, right? About like that, from I guess I would call our previous life to our new life. But I would just say, start somewhere. Maybe it's just dinner without electronics. I would just keep it super simple. Just start somewhere. And maybe you're not comfortable praying out loud or talking about your faith, but now you're spending time. So I think I would just start with one thing and start down that path.
That's good. For this question, let's try to make it as quick as possible because I have two others I want to move to. But how do you prioritize your marriage while raising your children? What are like 2 to 3 quick things that you've done? And by the way, the reason that's important is just so you know, biblically, God is your number one relationship, your spouse, then your children. We've flipped it, and that's why we have a lot of problems, okay? We can get to that another time. If you have questions about that, let me know. But your children are not your number one in life. They can't be. And we've idolized kids, and it's caused issues. So how do you prioritize your marriage while still raising your children?
Tell them what you say.
Well, I do tell my children, I said, I love your mom more than I love you.
Yeah.
And they know that. They know I would do anything for them, but they know I love their mom more than I love them, in the sense of she's the priority to me. This is the most important relationship. And they are a very, very close second, right, with God being the first. So
She wanted you to say that, by the way, just because she wanted to hear it again.
yeah, she likes to hear that
hearing
too.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I told you it would be profound. So
Yeah.
now I'm in trouble. I would just say we had unique circumstances. Diane was in the hospital for a couple of months. So how do you find this balance in a situation that you've never dealt with, and our world was just upside down? I think I hope what the kids saw was the intentionality of the focus on their mom and her healing and doing all of the sacrifices and not being at work and not doing all these other things that used to be done. And they saw a shift of priorities around getting her healthy and back home, and then them. And of course, it became really clear to them that God was number one. So it was just a unique time and circumstance, but I hope they saw that shift and picked up on what was ultimately important.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick about the practicality of it. Why don't you speak to that?
Yeah, practically speaking, that's something we have really prioritized over the years. And obviously it's looked different for our stages of life. But now we're in a stage of life that it's easy to leave our kids and we can go on a trip. You know, it hasn't always been like that. And maybe that meant just putting the kids down and having an in-home date night. But we have always we've time alone. And if that was a date night, or if that was a weekend getaway or a bigger trip, we've been very committed to, because we knew, like you said, top down, our family was only going to be strong if we were strong at the top.
That's right.
Believe a kid's mistake, bring it on. I think learn much better. All the family, no perfect. Okay.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah. No family's perfect.
That some of the real learning came through those mistakes, including ours.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's the last question. We're going to move to the last question here for time's sake. But, real quick, actually, put the resources up here. There's going to be 2 slides. We'll put them up back to back. But we asked these parents, and then I actually threw up 3 up there as well. You don't know whose is whose. But take a photo of these slides, and these are incredible resources for you and your family. I know the world offers you a ton of resources. Go to the internet and search, and you're going to find the good, bad, and ugly. And so hopefully this is some of the best up here. And if you need some resources, don't hesitate to ask if you need resources on a specific thing. But what would you say, what's the last 10% of things that you would want to share that you haven't been able to say?
I'll go. I actually wrote it down because I will ramble if I don't. This is what we want to share, what we haven't shared.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to say, and we all want to be good parents, right? But there's no perfect parenting. That's
Even Mary.
right. That's
Yeah.
God's job.
Yeah.
God is the perfect parent.
Right.
And we aren't called to fill that role.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do to guarantee that our children love Jesus. We can give them opportunity, we can give them resources, we can model, but it has to be their own choice. And if you fall into this formulaic belief that if you do all the right thing, do enough of the right things and avoid enough of the wrong things, then there's an equation that's going to equal what you want. Then your own failures and your kids' failures are going to crush you. And it's different in in a younger parenting stage of life to think, oh yeah, we're going to drop the ball, we're not going to be perfect parents, but then when you actually see the ball is laying around on the ground, that's, and you can name those failures, that it can really crush you. But God, we're not called to be the perfect parent. That's God. Yeah. And I think the beautiful thing is that He is not limited by our imperfections. He is writing, our kids' stories, and he's not limited by our shortcomings. And the other thing I want to say is kind of related to this is that if you're a parent, then that is a big part of the work that God has given you to do. And I love in Ecclesiastes how he talks about what is good for man is to eat and drink and enjoy the toil God has given him to do. And if you're a parent, that toil is your parenting.
Yeah.
But we're meant to enjoy it. And if you're trapped in a formulaic world of fearing that I didn't do enough or I didn't start early enough, then you aren't gonna enjoy it. And probably my favorite verse is in Ecclesiastes 9:17, where he says, he has already approved of you. And I just like that. And I'm speaking this to myself as much as anyone else, that it doesn't take away our responsibility to be engaged, good, godly parents, but it takes away responsibility for the outcome.
Yeah.
So, because again, God has already approved. If you're a parent, if you're parenting in Christ, He has approved of your work. He's approved of you.
That's good.
I would just say, and start a counseling fund, because as well as you do this, your kids are still going to need some help.
Yeah.
We're all trying, right?
Yep. For sure.
I was just thinking about men. That's kind of like the space where I like to hang out, because it was such a radical perspective change for me. My dad got me the book. It's up there, Steve Farrar, Point Man. And it's a godly man's responsibility in his home. Men, that's our call. It's hard work. It's all the things that Jesus he sacrificially loved. That's the call on our lives. That's our top calling. And I so easily got and still get caught up in the things of this world and the distractions. I was with a friend of mine who's very involved in men's ministry. He said he went to a symposium and there was lots of booths set up for all these different parachurch not-for-profits. And he said, if men lived up to their godly calling in the Bible, we would need half of these ministries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my question is, what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
Amen.
So as we close here, I just want to say that the greatest thing that you might do, or the greatest contribution that you might make to the kingdom of God, it may not be something you do, but someone you raise. And for you who are parents, you have the opportunity to raise a child up in the ways of the Lord, and there's nothing better you could ever do in your entire life. And if you are an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor or a youth leader or a teacher or whatever it is, the work is the children. And the greatest contribution that you could ever make may not be something you do, but someone you raise. And so I encourage you to take that seriously. And I pray that we have good, but not just good, but godly children raised here at Redemption. So give it up for our panelists. Thank you so much. All right. Well, while they're making their way back to their seat, we're going to go ahead and take communion. Maybe you haven't, made all the best decisions as parents, and maybe you're saying, like, I really have failed in this. And hearing this isn't inspiring as much as it is, like, I feel like that I'm just less than I could have been. Whatever it is, I want you to be praying, how can God use you, and how can He change you, and how can He make you into something new? The beautiful thing about communion is it's this moment where we get to commemorate 2 Corinthians 5:17, that if anyone is in Christ, you are a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. And you have the opportunity to be a new creation, even in your parenting, just like Todd and Diane mentioned. And so my prayer is that every day we're allowing God to recreate us, even in the ways of parenting and the ways that we need to be changed and molded and made more like him. And so be thinking about that as you go to take communion.